Is a grocery pharmacist a good career? Is it worth it? Or is it like one pharmacist who said on Reddit that after coming from CVS, his work-life balance improved 1,000-fold? That's what we're talking about today. Hi there, I'm Dr. Alex Barker. I'm the founder and coach at the Happy PharmD, where we talk about all things pharmacy careers. We talk about the job market and opportunities so that you can stop feeling burned out in pharmacy and find something fulfilling while avoiding those traps that a lot of pharmacists fall into, which unfortunately seem to be everywhere. If you're new here, welcome. It's nice to have you. And if you'd like more of this info in your life, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out. All right, so let's jump into this. At the heart of almost every American community is some sort of grocery store chain. We need food. And we have our local small mom and pop chains, but then we also have our larger ones, our Walmarts, our Sam's Clubs, our Costco's, our Kroger's, Publix. These mass merchandisers are our grocery store chains in the United States and very often have a pharmacy within them. I typically don't think of grocery store chains like our large retail chain pharmacies like CVS or Walgreens. This setting is retail, it's community, it's whatever word you want to use. I know there's nuances there, but ultimately if you just search for a job in that sector, if you type in retail pharmacy, you're going to capture the majority of these kinds of jobs. So they're responsible for the dispensing, education, and ensuring safety thereof of medications for community patients. We've come up with a list of grocery store chains that have the highest recommendations from people who work in these places so that you can see who's rated highly and why. Let's talk about money. How much we talking here? Money. Generally speaking, the grocery store pharmacist gets paid just about the average community pharmacist role. If you look at salary.com, the median salary was at $163. They base this information both on what people report as well as jobs that are posted through their website. I took this information from, quote, in-store pharmacist. So this probably includes things like CVS and Walgreens. And 163 is quite high. When looking at payscale.com's resources, they show that the average retail pharmacist is around 103, which is actually really low. I'm not sure where we fall between 103 and 160. But if you took a look at our Happy PharmD salary guide, which we publish every year, I think probably gives a little bit more closer to the truth. In our guide, we look at about 4 different sources, and we found that the averages range from 119 to 134. Bonuses can be included often in these stores, although it's not, of course, everywhere, especially not true if you're in a floating position. Career advancement is quite common, and of course, with it comes a bump in pay.
Baby, that's what I've been waiting for.
But not everyone wants to go that route for the extra stress, extra workload, for maybe a little bit more pay. As one Redditor commented on this exact situation, he said, PIC here, don't do it. I did it because they told me it would be temporary. They lied and I'm kind of stuck at the moment. Based on this analysis, looking at how you can grow in this career and how the average salary is, it's still pretty high. I mean, 6 figures is nothing really to sneeze at for a single income earner. I would rate this salary score as an 8 out of 10. All right, now let's talk about the thing that may be on a lot of people's minds, job satisfaction. Now, before we get into it, everyone's job satisfaction is subjective. There are some objective things that we will dig into in numbers, but it's so personal between what you get your satisfaction. There are great grocery store pharmacies out there. There are great bosses in these places. But I think what is overwhelmingly true for most is that these environments can be toxic. They can have difficult management. They can have difficult interactions with the public. And so take all of this with a grain of salt, knowing that we're talking about big numbers here, big data, but it comes down to, I think, almost the individual store and how that influences job satisfaction. According to the National Pharmacist Workforce Study, which is done about every 4 or 5 years, Job satisfaction amongst mass merchandisers, i.e. grocery stores, was low. On a scale of 1 to 4, these pharmacists on average wrote that they had a 2.02. So basically dissatisfied. On a scale of 1 to 4 for job stress, they rated it as a 3.17. So stressful is probably what to walk away with. This is backed up by anecdotal evidence. On Reddit, one pharmacist said, even grocery store pharmacies are overwhelmed. We don't have sufficient staff. On work exhaustion, so the idea that you're just like, you go into work exhausted and you leave worse off, on a scale of 1 to 5, they said 3.75. I take that mean, so it's not good. It's not good at all. And when you compare that to small chains or independents, their work exhaustion was a 2.6, much less, right? Significantly less. And in terms of intention to leave, it was just a little bit higher than the normal amount, 3.1. I kind of take that to mean about half of the people who are working in a grocery chain are thinking about leaving. One pharmacist wrote that my worst day at a grocery during COVID was about the same as working a regular day at CVS. Now, we're not talking about large chain pharmacies right now. We'll get to that in another video. You can check that out somewhere around here. Link in the description as well. In the diversity, equity, and inclusion part of this study, they found that people don't really feel like their background is valued by their employer. Only 32% agreed that their employer thought that that was valuable. Meanwhile, only 41% agreed with the statement that they feel like they belonged to their employer, while 80% agreed with that statement for pharmacists that are at independents or small chains. And just looking at some company reviews from major employers, we can see here that Kroger's a 3.2, Walmart's a 3.4, Publix is a 3.6. I actually think this is quite accurate, as I've worked with lots of pharmacists in the past. We've helped lots of pharmacists transition into some of these places in the right stores. And Publix almost historically has one of the better reputations for grocery stores. But also take a note that a lot of these reviews are from people who are not pharmacists, right? As they employ lots of various people. If you'd like to hear a pharmacist talk a little bit about how she is enjoying her grocery store pharmacy, I'd encourage you to check out this podcast with Linda Dumas. That'll be right here in this magical box that you can click. Considering these factors and considering some of the stress that's been going on considerably since COVID, if not way before that, I give the satisfaction score out of 10 of 4. All right, let's talk about job demand. Now, it doesn't matter how you split it. Every single month, thousands of pharmacist jobs are posted online. And about 50% of them, the majority of the time, will be community pharmacist jobs. Indeed, right now, if you just type in community pharmacist right now, you'll see that there's 23,000 jobs available. If you were to type in something much more specific and say grocery pharmacist, say on ZipRecruiter, I only found 73 jobs. Grocery store is something that I wouldn't type in your job search, as it's not really going to be helpful. You could type in probably employer's name. That would be way more specific and better. Unfortunately, when it comes to classifying different jobs in pharmacy, we're never really consistent with the naming. Meanwhile, if you also look at ZipRecruiter and type in community pharmacist, you'd find over 40,000 jobs available. And interestingly, on Indeed, when I looked up community pharmacist and looking for entry level, there was about 20,000 jobs available. That means that about 86% of all new jobs available don't require a ton of experience. In the foreseeable future, I see the demand increasing for these jobs, as I don't see these stores as particularly at risk for closure. These places are doing everything they can to give sign-on bonuses for these positions to entice people to come to them. We've never seen this happen since like 2006 was when the last sign-on bonuses. If you want to see me break down why the sign-on bonuses are back, you can check out my explanation here in a video. The other aspect to the demand discussion is that there are going to be new jobs available. Pharmacies are experimenting with different kinds of services as customers are now seeing that these grocery store settings are places for them to get services from pharmacists. They saw that in the pandemic, right? Giving immunizations and vaccines. So places like Schnucks are doing things like cardiovascular health kiosks, and Publix are using telehealth rooms to provide services to patients. All of this, I believe, will increasing the demand of different things that pharmacists will be doing in these settings. The other interesting fact on this is that J.D. Power published a customer satisfaction score and rated a lot of the different chains that are out there. And these grocery store chains, these mass merchandisers, remain some of the top highly rated different pharmacies across the nation. I could go on and on and on about the new innovations that are happening in these places. They're not widespread, but it's becoming more popular. Because of these things, the number of jobs available and the growth and the resiliency, based on these factors, I'm going to give grocery store pharmacist a demand score of 8 out of 10. And now for the final factor, flexibility. Flexibility is one of those kind of like magic factors. And so I like to look at anecdotal things as well as what pharmacists tell me they enjoy about this kind of work. Sometimes a grocery store setting can be very nice and relaxing. As one Redditor noted, I won't even talk about how jealous I am of the Costco pharmacist. Last time I was in there, homie was reading a book. Now, obviously, Costco is different than settings that can be busier, say your Walmarts of the world, but ultimately, Costco is very different than something like a Walmart or a Publix or a Kroger. But I tend to think that the Costcos, the Sam Clubs, seem to be the ones with the most flexibility, the least amount of stress, and overall willing to work with you, especially with the fact that they were some of the first stores to provide flippin' lunch breaks. It's insane that they didn't have this in place beforehand. In terms of transitioning into other different roles, I mean, it is so easy for a pharmacist to go from one grocery chain to another. That is not hard. What is often hard for these kinds of pharmacists is transitioning into roles outside of the community setting. This is kind of my company's specialty. It's what we do by coaching you through this process of figuring out what else is out there in the marketplace, how you can use your grocery chain, whatever store that you've been in, experience, and position yourself as a viable candidate. However, what I hear over and over again from pharmacists is things like they can't take off more than a week. It's hard to request off things. One pharmacist told me they had worked 7 Christmases in a row. Pharmacies do long shifts. They do 3 on, 4 off, 4 on, 3 off. The schedule seems to be the number one complaint, and it's hard to change it. One pharmacist told me that their manager was mad at them because they were sick and they had to take off. These mass merchandising jobs for pharmacists are not things that like really prepare you all that well for just other pharmacy jobs, but also just like innovation, creativity, or even going into business for yourself. Because of these reasons, because the skills are so niched down to what the pharmacy needs, it doesn't do a wonderful job of preparing you for other kinds of pharmacy practice setting. Automation is going to take a lot of these things away. After all, would you trust a machine to dispense you a medicine, or would you trust a person? If you think a person is better, then I would point to the fact that robots are the things that are making our drugs. Knowing that, the flexibility here makes it interesting because I think the future of grocery store chains is going to be expanding into other things. I believe services are going to be a part of it. I think grocery stores will become more of a hub for health, and the food as medicine movement, I think, is going to help propel that because people now are seeing how important the quality of your food influences your health over time. Because of these reasons, I'm going to give the flexibility score a 4 out of 10. Okay, we've talked about our factors. Where are we at? Breaking this all down, my final verdict for grocery store pharmacist careers is a 6 out of 10. I think there's room and opportunities for these roles to be expanded upon, for services that can be provided. I think innovation's happening. I think that they're very well paid jobs. Bonuses are back. The demand for these jobs is high and a resilient demand, even through recessions. But overall, these jobs are very stressful. They have a lot of work exhaustion and stress. And I think that this next generation of pharmacists aren't willing to work in settings that don't value them, that are putting way too much stress on their lives and what they care about. And I think that the demand is going to push these work settings to be better. At least that's what I'm hopeful for. So, was I fair? Grocery store pharmacists that are currently in that setting, what do you think about my score? Are you angry that you're not paid more? Are you frustrated with the low amount of job satisfaction or the stress that you have? And what do you see happening in this industry for innovation? Are you seeing some of these interesting things or services that are being started? I would love to hear your thoughts, so please share them below. Thanks for watching this video. We did a lot of research for this, so I would appreciate your feedback on it. Let me know if we should have talked about something different. And until I see you in the next video, take care.